I scared.
Fair.
That the lady.
You. Mute us, mute us.
All right, good evening, everyone. I think as we slowly let people come into the room, we'll get started. I'd like to welcome you all to a special event tonight that we've titled, How Do We Handle the Swastika? An Interfaith Dialogue on One of the Most Controversial Symbols on the Planet. And my name is Adam Weissman. I'm one of the two co-producers of a documentary film called Manji, along with my co-producer, the director of the film, and good friend, Yosuke Kanami, who's also here this evening. Now, Manji is the Japanese term for the swastika symbol. For those of you that aren't aware of the deep history behind the symbol, it has significance as a positive religious and cultural symbol for Buddhists, Hindus, Jainists, different Native American tribes, and many more cultures around the world, all going back thousands of years. Now, this meaning is all well and good in many parts of the world, but say in North America, where a lot of us attending here are tonight, where so many of us associate the swastika with Nazis and modern hate groups. When we see certain cultures use a symbol, even when they have literally no association with the Nazi symbol, this is obviously problematic. And this issue brings us to one of the central questions that we're asking in our documentary film. How do we handle the swastika? Is one viewpoint more important than the other? Can these two interpretations meaningfully coexist? Now, I'm going to stop myself from really getting into this topic right this second, because we have three esteemed guests with us tonight that we're going to introduce in just another minute. we're going to be diving into this issue together. Before we do that, though, I would like to speak briefly about the documentary that we've been creating, where we're at with it today. We started filming Manji in 2019 when Yosuke and I met with Reverend TK Nakagaki, author of The Buddhist Swastika and Hitler's Cross. Now, Reverend Dr. TK Nakagaki, or TK as we all call him, wrote a book in 2018. He actually wrote a Japanese version of it years before that, that essentially is his way of educating people that aren't aware with the history of the swastika, what it means, and how it got skewed and distorted by the Nazis. This was a fascinating book, to say the least. Covers a lot of issues that I wasn't fully aware of at the time, and Yosuke and I thought needed to be told in an even larger fashion. So we joined TK. We actually followed him to Japan in April 2019. When we were in Japan, we met with rabbis, we met with priests of different faiths, we met with different government officials. We even went to a ramen shop that was absolutely filled to the brim with swastikas. And we finally went to a number of different temples, just capturing Western tourists and asking them what they thought about the swastika. Once we finished filming in Japan, we flew back to New York and started filming here. In New York, we have met with a number of other rabbis. Chief among them is Rabbi Brad Hirschfield, who's going to be joining us tonight as well. We met with professors. We met with Stephen Heller, who's a professor at the School of Visual Arts and a designer who writes specifically about hate symbols, and had a very interesting debate between him and TK, as they're on very opposite ends of the spectrum on this argument, or on this issue rather. And one thing that's been very interesting creating this film is, even though we've wrapped filming as of a couple months ago, which means we have all the footage we've been trying to capture, it has been incredibly difficult to get support for this film. As you can imagine, it hasn't been the easiest to get public-facing organizations to try to, for lack of a better term, to try to give us money to make this thing. So we've had a lot of start and stops up until now. We are finished funding, and we really want to get a film out there. So what we did earlier this month was launch a crowdfunding campaign. This is a crowdfunding campaign on Seed and Spark, which we'll post the link to. And we're very proud to announce that as of this week, we're now at 90% of our total goal, meaning that we're going to be able to finish this film. It's something that we should be able to edit and get out well before the end of the year. Now, we are 90%, means we're obviously not at 100%. So part of the reason why we put together tonight's event, and part of the reason we've been doing so much this month, is to try to get to that 100%. So we'll ask you, after the end of this talk tonight, if you've enjoyed what you've listened to, if you want to learn more, if you want to see more, please go to this link that I'm going to post right now. Check it out, follow us. If you can donate, our crowdfunding campaign is open for just one more week. And I also want to sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, say thank you to everyone attending tonight that already has donated or followed or spread the word. It's only with your help that we've been able to get to this point, and it's only with your help that we're going to be able to get this movie out there. Now, I just talked a lot. I think what I'm going to do now is turn things over to my co-producer, Yosuke Kaname, who's going to give an introduction to the three panelists speaking this evening. Thanks, Yosuke.
Cool, awesome. Thank you all for joining us today. First of all, I'd like to introduce our main subject of the film, Reverend Dr. TK Nakagaki. He is a freelance Buddhist priest ordained in 1980. He is the author of the Buddhist Swastika and Hitler's Cross, rescuing a symbol of peace from the forces of hate. He is the founder, president of the Heiwa Peace and Reconciliation Foundation of New York, current VP of the Buddhist Council of New York, Hiroshima Peace Ambassador, and honorary board member of the Interfaith Center of New York. Reverend TK and his book is the whole reason we began shooting the documentary, and his drive to educate people about the swastika is a very important part of the film. And we were able to talk with and interview many wonderful individuals, and one of those is our next panelist, Rabbi Brad Hirschfield. Listed for many years in Newsweek as one of America's 50 most influential rabbis, Rabbi Hirschfield serves as the president of CLAL, the National Jewish Center for Learning and Leadership, a training institute, think tank, and resource center nurturing religious pluralism within the Jewish community and beyond. He is the author and editor of numerous books, including You Don't Have to Be Wrong for Me to Be Right, Finding Faith Without Fanaticism. He writes a column for Religious News Service and appears regularly on TV and radio discussing the role of faith in our public culture and the centrality of pluralism in assuring the positive value of that role. Rabbi Hirschfield provides a crucial perspective for the film, not only because of his Jewish background, but also because his views on the swastika are counter to what Reverend TK has in mind. So today's discussion will be very interesting as well. For our final panelist, we were originally scheduled to have Dr. Uma Mysorkar, but she had a last-minute scheduling conflict and cannot make it today. Fortunately, we were able to have with us Mr. Ravi Vaidyanaat Sivachariar to take her place. He is the director and spiritual leader at the Hindu Temple Society of North America, which established the first authentic Hindu temple in North America in 1970. He is a scholar in Hindu Veda, Agama Sastra, and Saiva Siddhanta. He hails from a hereditary Hindu priest lineage from southern India. He has devoted his life to serving all living beings and has accumulated knowledge on many aspects of faith, spirituality, and science. The swastika has a great significance in Hinduism as well, so I'm very glad he can join us today. And with that introduction, I'd like to start off with our first question. If TK wants to start, tell me what the swastika means to you, both as an individual and in your capacity as a representative of your particular faith.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, really nice to have you, everyone, today. And so it's a kind of interesting dialogue. So I'm excited to be here and see how the other people think. So my simply answer for the Buddhist, myself is a background as a raised in Japan and born and raised in Japan. But then actually at the age of 25, I came to the United States. So I have a little different, changing of the symbol means. Because when I was in Japan, simply, if you see the symbol swastika, which means the first thing that I think is a Buddhist temple. Because all the maps in Japan, if you see the symbol, that means Buddhist temple. And then also I was raised in a Buddhist family. So when you see the swastika, that's the sacred of the sutras, Buddhist text. Normally in front of the Buddhist text, there's some swastika all over the place. And then also sometimes the Buddha's, the chest. And so basically something, when you see the swastika, that means something to do with the Buddhism. And if you start learning, then I realize that's the Buddha himself or Buddha's mind. And so the meaning, the swastika represent compassionate aspect of wisdom of the Buddhism. And so kind of very essential for the Buddhist teachings. And at that time, I don't know much of the Hinduism. So for me, that was it. And then, but I knew about the Hitler symbol. But then, I mean, when you say swastika means that, and in Japan, we call it Hakenkreuz for the Hitler's cross, so that's more like a Nazi Germany, nothing else. I mean, it's not necessarily Holocaust or anything related, but simply Nazi Germany is a flag. So, and then after I came to moved to the US, so here the swastika, the first 25 years, this is a symbol I cannot use in this country. This is a prohibited country talk, and so don't mention ever about the swastika, taboo.
Thank you, TK, so much. I think with that, since you mentioned the Hindu interpretation, we'll turn the question to Ravi, Mr. Sivachariar. If you could answer the same question, please tell us what the swastika means to you, both as an individual and as a representative of your faith.
So, I hope all are able to hear me. See, for me as an individual, it is a great auspicious symbol signifying the peace and prosperity for me as an individual. But if I look at it in my faith perspective of Hindu faith, it is prominently and referred very frequently in various holy books of Hindu faith. Right from the Rig Veda, I can quote a lot of mantras where swastika name is appearing very frequently. Not only that, even in literatures which are dated back to even 1500 to 500 BCE, and till date is being considered as a symbol of priest. But if you permit me, I can just tell only 2 mantras from Rig Veda, where you will see, which is more than 1500 BC on to 500 BC, you will know that period. This Veda mantras talks about swastika. Swasti na Indro vriddhasravaha, swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha, swasti nastarksho arishthanemihi, swasti no brihaspatir dadhato. This is the word we keep appearing in Rig Veda several times. There one more mantra I'll tell you, which is used by all temple as a universal peace prayer. Just see how this swastika is coming there as a word. Swastika as a word. Swasti prajabhya paripalayantam nyayena marghena mahim mahishaha go brahmanebhya shubhamastu nityam loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. So it says loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Let whole universe be peace. So they start with only with Swasti mantra. So Swasti mantra has got a very prominent and very frequently it appears in, you take any Vedic literatures, you will find this name. Even Sanskrit literatures, you will find this name. So that's about how my faith using this word in their texts. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Excellent answer. Rabbi Hirschfield, turn the question to you. Please tell us what the swastika means to you as an individual and in your capacity as a representative of your faith.
Okay, so thank you, Adam and Yosuke, and to TK and Ravi, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Look, for me, and I want to come back to why I think it's a brilliant question that you've asked. The swastika is a symbol of genocidal hatred. The swastika is a symbol of mass murder at levels that are beyond comprehension, no matter how many times we count the millions. But what I love about your question is you asked, what does it mean to me? Which is why, having said what I just said and meaning it 100%, in no way does that diminish the 100% truths shared by Ravi and TK. That's the key. The swastika doesn't mean any one thing. And for me, what the invitation to enter this conversation is what does it mean to be rooted in a tradition which values compassion and care for others? And to talk about what any symbol means, independent of how those others experience it. So I could go on and on and on and talk about the history of the Holocaust and the murdered millions. But that would never be the whole answer, because it would ignore millions and millions of other people for whom it means something quite different to that. And by the same token, we could spend the rest of the evening grounding the beauty and the peace that the swastika, the same swastika, symbolizes for millions of others, and it would mean nothing if it didn't take into account the millions and millions of those murdered under the same exact symbol. So what does it mean to me? No question asked. It means genocidal hatred and murder at an epic scale that still causes pain around the world to millions and millions of people. By the way, not only Jews, 1 million Catholics, most of whom were murdered precisely because their Catholic faith taught them to do things that, frankly, I don't know if I would have the courage to do under such circumstances. It's hard enough to step in to save people you love, to save people you don't even know under penalty of death. So it's not just a Jewish thing. So I have no problem. What does the swastika mean? 100% genocidal murder, hatred, and death. But that's 100% true of only 50% of the story. The real challenge, it seems to me, is to appreciate that the stories are always longer and more complicated than we first want to imagine? And can we make room for each other's understandings? And most importantly, in whose presence do we speak about which meaning?
Hirschfield, thank you for that answer. And that brings us to another question, sort of working off of that. You obviously have highlighted both of these polarizing viewpoints that are interpreted differently throughout the world. We in North America are dealing with a bit of a melting pot or salad bowl, however you want to call it. We've got multiple cultures all in one space, especially for us in New York today. I don't know how many cultures on one tiny island. So my next question, and we'll throw it to TK to start, just to keep this going, and TK, feel free to respond to anything Rabbi Hirschfield said as well, is two-part question. In your opinion, where does the swastika symbol fit in modern day North America? And is there one interpretation of the symbol or one understanding of the symbol that should be afforded more weight or should be considered with more regard than another interpretation? TK, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. You're not asking for that next question, so you want to skip this one? Okay, I'm okay with it, but you don't need to explain.
We're gonna jump between a few of the questions.
Oh, okay. I just want curious, but anyway, yeah. So as far as the yeah, America afford, yeah. So first of all, for me, you know, because of the condition of the global community now, then at least the United States, you know, we're just talking about a lot of cultural things mixing with the, you know, all the different cultural understanding. And so you know, one of the reasons that, of course, the Buddhist community or Hindu community, Asian community didn't use for the swastika for a long time, simply because we don't want to hurt the people's feeling of the, so especially particularly, you know, the Jewish people suffer so much before. And I mean, so that's 75 years past, okay? And, but then still some people are suffering for that. So we don't want it to, you know, basically that's one of the reasons that I was prohibited to use, or even myself teach my, you know, younger generation, you know, minister came to the United States. I told them, you know, this is not Japan, so you shouldn't talk about swastika parts because this can hurt the people's feeling, and so be compassionate is very important. But now I changed mine recently, like about 10 years ago, simply because I realized more people, like Asian people or Native American people who used to use the symbol, start hurting more. Meaning like ADL, I think they're try to, you know, find anything happen to the swastika, even like East Asian country, they're using swastika, then they start picking up. I mean, this is not correct, I thought. And so maybe, you know, I'm expecting 25 years ago, like a Buddhism, you know, nobody knows Buddhism. That, you know, I say Buddhist priest, and they think that I say Baptist priest. You know, there's no Buddha. I mean, if you go to, you know, the bookstore, no Buddhist books available. So have to go specialized school. I mean, special library. I mean, in the bookstore, then you get it. So like that. So, you know, how much I can expect for the people to understand the Buddhist things. So, but then these days are different, you know, getting more books and everything's available. And now people are more knowledgeable about all the other culture and they're interested in, but then, but still we can't talk about swastika is not correct for me now, because the more people, you know, immigrant Asians, you know, coming here. And then, you know, and then even like some of the name of the, I think the Hindu, you know, the name, you know, there are many names like a swastika. They used to be very, nice name, you know, in the family. And then after they came here, if her name is Swasti or Swastika or something like that, it's really bad name. evil name, more like. And then so the people who are not evil person could be identified as evil. Even like if I say, even like I start using the swastika many times, I was considered as the evil person, or who else is going to use this words for in this world. I mean, that itself is a totally Western centered view of the world. And then if this world is not only Western people live, and or maybe other whatever the race live, and then we share the earth all together. And then especially United Nations here in New York, and we do have all different people living here. And so the swastika has been always compared with the age of the hate symbol of the Hitler use, the swastika has been here for over 3,000 years, at least the Buddhist 2,000 years, over 2,000 years we've been using it. And then, it's not kind of the different way. I feel like something is not fair right now. And then so that's why I feel like, if you're talking about global community we're living and we respect each other, and then it's time to bring it up, because this has been a taboo. But a lot of time taboo means there's some other agenda for some society, so that's why it become taboo. But then now this taboo should be breaking up many parts of the taboo that we call it. So that's why I feel like this is really appropriate right now to discuss what can we really accept or understand, because sometimes people don't even listen to, that's not right. And then so you have to be open-minded. The United States and all the dialogue that we should have is open-minded, and then bring the truth, not just the one truth, maybe 100% truth to one person and 100% to other person. So you need to be on the table, both. So that's why this book intends to have a dialogue or understanding, education, and then how much you can open our mind. And then you can have a more, the wholesome dialogue, not one-sided dialogue.
And I think that's exactly the purpose of conversations like today, and the purpose of the film that we're putting together. But TK, you raise a lot of great points, which is really, we've pushed out the Buddhist, we've pushed out the Hindu interpretation of the swastika, and maybe it's time, or it should be time, to be talking about this more. And I think, Ravi, we'll get to you in a moment, but Rabbi Hirschfield, if you could respond directly to some of TK's points, specifically as it relates to the community in New York, or the community in North America generally becoming more global, and it's time to bring this conversation to look more at the positive symbol of the swastika, if only because there are more people here that come from that background, that have that positive viewpoint of it. How do we handle that today? Where does it fit now, where things are today?
So about those things, TK and I are largely in agreement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
The
so.
fact of the matter is that symbols point always, if they're really rich symbols, to multiple meanings.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue for me is never which is right, but what's the cost, and to whom, of sharing whatever truth I carry. So if someone said to me, in an utterly safe space in which it doesn't harm people or cause them massive amounts of pain, is it important to begin to recognize the antiquity and the depth and the positive power of the swastika symbol? Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone said to me that however true that positive power may be, I will never do it unless I first ascertain, will it harm others? Then I would say yes. No, it's not about being right. It's what's the cost to the other people around us. And that's really the key. So it's interesting to me that we talk about this being a controversial symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And I think actually the swastika isn't a controversial symbol at all. And that's the problem. For the people who experience its beauty and antiquity from South and East Asia, they often scratch their heads and say, we don't really understand why it's so controversial. It's been such a beautiful thing for thousands of years. Isn't that good enough? And the answer is no. And then for other people who say, my relatives were murdered under that symbol, isn't that good enough to keep it silent forever? And I would say, no. Because there are millions and millions and millions of other people who don't have that experience. And so actually what I think it's time to do is to allow the symbol to be authentically controversial, which means that for those of us who are utterly filled with loathing and fear and disgust when we see that symbol, keep that. But maybe make a 5% allocation for the fact that, you know, there's millions and millions of people, that's not how they experience it. And that for the millions of people who experience it as the frontispiece of a sacred text in the Buddhist tradition, it will be really useful when we're telling that story to remember it may have been the last graphic seen by millions and millions of people as they were marched into gas chambers because they were Jewish, because they were gay, because they used Christian tradition to speak out against Nazism, or any of the other people who were murdered under that symbol. It's not a question of which one is right. It's in whose presence is the symbol being used, and what is the impact, not just on us who know one meaning of the story or the symbol, but on other people who live with the other meaning of that same symbol.
Rabbi Hirschfield, I think with that point, I'll turn Ravi to you with a bit of a pivot from that specific question, which is Rabbi Hirschfield brought up some points about perhaps viewing or using the swastika symbol from the positive perspective, from the Hindu or Buddhist perspective, in what would be considered safe spaces. I think that begs the question to some degree of what would a safe space actually be? Where is a safe space in New York? Where is a safe space if you're expressing something on social media or elsewhere? So Ravi, from your perspective, if we were to, let's say, have a situation where the swastika is able to be used more openly in New York, for example, what would that look like to you? How would we go about doing that while still taking into account the many issues and many concerns Rabbi Hirschfield brought up?
I would like to answer this with one or two preamble. Okay. See, I'm basically I'm an interfaith person. Even though I born in a Hindu family, and I'm a physics graduate, but at the same time I studied the Vedic studies from my own grandfather. That is one. But I also studied a complete Old Testament and certified. Okay. For the sake of knowledge, I went and studied that. Also, I studied the complete Buddhism and both the versions, and through a Philippine teacher, I learned Buddhism also, and healing, pranic healing, all those things. That is one information. Why I did it is for the sake of understanding the religion across the world. Now, coming back to this question, I heard both TK as well as Rabbi. I would like to see this in two different ways. One is a word, another is a sign. The word is what we speak, and what we speak is a sound. It gives you a sound. So we have some combination of sound, which is in script we call it as a text. But what happened is, I have done a complete anatomy of the word swastika, and also complete anatomy of the sign or symbol swastika. So I look at it in two different dimensions. Okay, so when I talk about swastika, I have to see what is the origin of this swastika word or a sound. Where did it origin? Where is the origin of this word? And why this is got? So I have a very ancient text which can give an explanation where I have done anatomy. I can just give you a few sound that is coming out of swastika. Like, when I say swastika, I could hear the sound is, swa, swasti, ka, like that. No. Now, if I look at the anatomy of each sound, nowhere this sound represent something hate, something inauspicious, and something bad. But every sound, the swastika is combined, gives you a very peaceful, good thing. Just to give one or two example, the su, when the sound start with su, which is normally in Sanskrit literature added as a prefix to represent something goodness, something auspiciousness, something like I say sukritam, subhashitam, or sugunam, subhavam. Subhava means suppose my act, good act. My bhava, my knowledge, good knowledge, like that. No, the su is added as a prefix. Similarly, the swa, which is a self. Okay. Then the third one is it also called as we call it as swadharma. Dharma means everybody knows it's a religious or it's an act or a duty. Swadharma means again itself. So it gives multiple meaning, and I could not see even a one negative meaning for this swastika. Of course, finally, swastika is also used in the sense of blessing, like I say amen. Can I say amen will represent anything bad? Amen means in every prayer, they end with amen. Well, of course, there are way of pronunciation. The pronunciation varies. Some places they call it amen or amen, like that, no? But this sound does not give any negative value. Similarly, swastika as a word, as a sound, never gives a bad meaning. Now, coming to the sign or symbol. So basically what happens is when we want to express the philosophical meaning or the philosophy behind a word or to express an idea, we use a sign. The sign again two types. One is we can show sign and symbol using our fingers, using our face, using our eye. Like we can say hi, we can say I, like this, no? All this hand symbol, body symbol, like that. Similarly, we also represent this exchange of words or greetings, anything through some sign, through some picture, through some drawings, through some logo, like that. Now, I'm looking at swastika as a logo or sign or symbol, swastika as a word. I could not find swastika word than from the root word, which is from Sanskrit. I would like to hear from others if there is any root word or the word which is available in their dictionaries or in encyclopedias. I would like to hear that definitely about swastika giving a different negative meaning, number one. Now coming to the symbol, I will say, see, I'll give one example. I'll take a knife, I take an apple. Apple across the world has the same nutrition value. Does apple give a different nutrition value differently from different countries? Maybe there's some small variations, but apple is supposed to have the same nutrition value across the world. Similarly, a knife, if a knife held by a doctor, it is called a surgical equipment. The same knife, if a thief is having or if a murderer is having, it is not to safeguard the patient, or he is not going to do surgery, he is going to kill. So the knife, name both are called as knife. Knife in the hands of a doctor, knife in the hand of a killer or a murderer. So are we talking about knife held by a doctor who call it as a surgery equipment to safeguard, to save some people, or whereas this? So like that, what I'm trying to say is the symbol is basically an expression of the word or the sound or application. So we have to look at it, this thing, and if we explain it anywhere in the world, okay, like our Rabbi is saying, this symbol has been taken up by a group which has not named it as swastika, but has used it for some negative purpose. And it has become a hate symbol, not hate word. But again, nowhere I was not given to understand Hitler has never used the word swastika when he's using this symbol. Say, for example, forget about this knife and apple. Take about a mathematician. If I give a plus sign, for mathematician, a plus sign means two numerals before and after the sign, he has to add summation. For mathematician, a plus symbol means it is a summation. Whereas if I put a same cross in a church, it is called as sacred cross. They never call it as a plus sign. They call it as a cross which represent their faith.
Ravi, I hate to.
What I'm trying to say is, whether in America or in New York or in India, anywhere, it has to mean the same across. But if some people have started using it for different purpose, so we need to understand: should we call it as swastika? Should we call it as a Hawking-Truce, or should we call it as a plus sign? Should we call it as a Maya? Or even in Sanskrit, it is mentioned about intersection of 4 lines. In the mathematics, it is there. In astrology, it is there. An intersection of 4 lines is also called a swastika, where it doesn't mean a peace symbol. It means a meeting of 4 lines at a junction. So who is applying it, he has to take it. So for me, as per my faith, I understand the swastika as a word in different way. And that's what my text says. And it is, I would like to listen to the other point. Similarly, the symbol, whether you put it in the, 90 degree this side or left side or right side or upside or downside,
okay.
the symbol is same.
Hello, can I tell you something?
So TK,
if you don't mind.
Okay.
TK, Ravi, that was excellent. What I'd like to do actually, TK, we're going to end on.
Wait, before that, I just wanted to make sure that 2 things I wanted to also clear, which is the word. The Rabbi keeps saying like swastika for Hakenkreuz. I mean that has been one of the problematic things for us.
Yes.
Because when you say swastika, it has an image that itself.
Correct.
But you are using the wrong terms for swastika for Hakenkreuz. Because Hakenkreuz is the one Hitler used. He used Hakenkreuz intentionally. He avoid using the swastika. He never used it. So why, when you say Hakenkreuz is a Hitler's cross, swastika is a Eastern thing. Yes. I mean, that's clear. But then, the people mix up the language by saying this is bad, but then you use the words. I mean, sometimes people think the words doesn't matter, but for linguistic, I'm actually, my background is linguistics too. So, the language create the meaning and everything. So that's why it has to be very careful when you say certain things. Correct. And then that's why the part of the language difference, because in Hitler's, when you read the Hitler's words, everything, speeches, everything is a Hakenkreuz. He never said even once in a swastika. Only translation. When the books translated, especially the first oldest book for Mein Kampf, when they translate, the part of the Hakenkreuz is a hooked cross. That's more like a translation. But then from the second after is all, the swastika. That's why it changed the meaning of it, that itself. So it has to be clearly distinction between those 2 words, so that when you talk about the different words, but then it changed the meaning totally. I mean, it just separate from those 2 things. So
those are TK and Ravi, those are excellent points. And actually, I want to take those points.
That's why I told you to take it 2 differently. Word separately, symbol separately. Don't mix up.
I'd like to take those points and actually turn to Rabbi Hirschfield and sort of ask a question based off of exactly what both of you were saying. Because TK, I know working with you over the last 2 years, the distinction between swastika as a word and Hakenkreuz as a word has become so crucial. Mm-hmm. And with that point, I would like to turn to Rabbi Hirschfield and say, do you think the name matters? Do you think making that distinction is going to get us in a place, or is even the first step towards getting us in a place where we can separate between the two symbols?
So the irony is, I think it does exactly the opposite and drives us farther away from getting to a place where people can appreciate the multiple meanings of the symbol. And this really is a place where I am different from TK and Ravi. And by the way, it has to do with the fact that whether we call it a Hakenkreuz or a swastika, it is a symbol, not a sign, which means it does not have one meaning. That is the fundamental difference between a sign and a symbol.
Not necessarily.
But if it is truly a symbol, that means that the issue is not debating, quote, what it really means. And I get that. I'm not disputing any of the story either of you is telling. It's just at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
It does.
Because people's experience of the word will always matter more than whatever history lesson we give them about the word. And that's really the difference, Adam, is that for me, we can debate the meanings of words until the cows come home. I'm much more interested in first appreciating what those things mean to the people to whom I'm talking. And from once I'm inside of that experience, then we can begin to do all the other. The more powerful the symbol, the less stable its meaning. And so debating its history not only will not, I think, get us toward the kind of complexity that we think would be good for all of us, but will actually drive us further away from it. Because it forces people who feel differently to decide one way or the other. What does it really mean? What does it really mean? It really means all the things it means to all the people who have attached to it. And I don't ever want to be the one to look at someone and say, no,
sounds like
because of my training in philology or history, I can tell you that your life experience means less than my analysis.
Okay, I'm going to ask a final question. It seems like the audience is getting interested in participating. Here's what I'm going to suggest. Going to ask one final question. I will ask that the three of you please keep your answers to about 30 or to 45 seconds. I know that's very short, but as soon as we ask that question, we have the three answers from you. We're going to open up questions to the audience. There's already some interest on the right. Type in your answers. Yosuke and I will pick a number of questions. I will say it's already 10 to 8. So we won't be able to answer everyone's questions. We'll do our best to fit as many in the next 10, 15 minutes or so. But I just want to go back to this question, which I alluded to a little bit before. TK, we'll start with you again, 30 to 45 seconds. The mission that we've been on with you for the past 2 years, getting the swastika, getting the knowledge about the swastika out, it's obviously so important to you. What does it look like? What does success from your perspective on this topic look like? Please keep it to 30 to 45 seconds.
Okay. Yeah. So first of all, people start re-examining what you're talking about, what you're saying about, and do we really understand what the symbol represent by Hitra, or even like represent by the Buddhist swastika, or Hindu swastika. So it's just basically start. Oh, sorry about all the silence all around me, but I don't know whether you hear or not. But so it's basically the bringing up on the front, not taboo. We can talk about it. We just not push one view, but bring the table on the top of it, so we can start maybe recooking. But then because so there's a lot of attachment really because of the education and all the society itself should, even like a bill, New York bill, try to bring it one view and not to accept others. And so just start, real discussion, not just, one view, you think this way, that way. Of course, that's very important part as well. And then so it's not one erase others, but both are the facts. So how can the both can coexist? And then it's a true meaning of, for me, is the understanding, the awareness, even the history change depending upon how you see now. because even like one time, I really didn't like the one person say, oh, this is a universal symbol. I mean, swastika is a universal symbol of evil. But now I appreciate it because without his saying that, I even started this book or, research. So at that time I was kind of angry, or why the expert doesn't know about the swastika is also means something else. And then not knowing that they say universal symbol of evil is not also the other way you're pushing other people like that. But yet now what I feel is I appreciate it because history changed. I mean, now come to think without his, saying I didn't do this work, right? So which means everything could be changed. This is a Buddhist saying, everything changes, but nothing remains without change. We can heal, we can damage, we can heal, we may damage again, but then that's the way that life is. So what we need to have, for me, is the importance to bring the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, TK. Excellent answer. Ravi, I want to be mindful that we're getting so close to 8 and want to answer as many questions as possible. So as quickly as you can, although I know this is a difficult question, what does success, what does coexistence look like to you?
Okay. See, this is an information technology era, or digital era, and where everything is globally accessible. Anything you ask for, you just click a button, you get everything information. So in this kind of world, we have access to the world now. So you have information available at the press of a button. Just seek the right, because like TK said, history may be correct, may requires updation, may contain some I will not call it as a wrong information, but that was the inferred information at that time when the history was written. But it can always be updated. There is nothing wrong if we find an error. If there is an error, history can be rewritten. And because things keep changing, so we have to look at, we are in a position to get information. We have access to people, access to phone, access to data. When that is the case, look for the truths, look for the correct information, correct in the sense to the maximum possible with the original source and things like that, and then take your own decision. Instead of forcing others, please, you should do, okay, there are certain commandments we have to follow, but even that also, interpretation changes. If versions after versions we are getting. So let us look at the scope available now that in this world. Now, let us look for the truthful information, correct information, and then apply it in our life. See, we learn by experience. We correct by experience. If we make a mistake, there's nothing wrong. Yes, we have made a mistake unknowingly. There's nothing wrong. There's a chance for us. Let us correct it. Let us update it. Let us be a better person tomorrow. I think that's what we should look at.
Thank you, Ravi. And Rabbi Hirschfield, finally, I'll turn to you to answer that question. And again, I'm interested in maybe a little more of elaboration on what you meant by discussing space safety, especially as Ravi just pointed out, in this age of technology and information that is immediately at your fingertips. What does that even look like?
So I can get it in 30 seconds, I think, because I don't think our fundamental problem here is informational. I think it's wisdom. And what wisdom around this would look like for me is seeing millions and millions and millions of people for whom the swastika symbol is beautiful and compelling, stand up and be the leading advocates for how horrifying it is for millions of others of their human beings. And for the millions of people for whom it's a nauseating, agonizing symbol, standing up and reminding the world that is part of the story, but it is not the whole story for millions of others of their fellow human beings. It's not an informational problem. It's a wisdom and compassion challenge. And if we can rise to that, I think we actually can return the complexity to the symbol without dishonoring either the pain or the pride that people feel half a globe apart from one another.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Hirschfield. All right, we are getting very close to 8 o'clock. We do want to answer a few questions. If we do run over past 8, if our panelists have to leave, so be it, but we'll go through a few. I'm going to turn this back to Yosuke to choose the first question. If you do have questions, like David offered up, please feel free to write them to him if you want to give the question anonymously. If you're comfortable giving the question to us all, please do it in the chat. We'll try to answer a few of them. We'll throw these questions to our three panelists. So Yosuke, take it away. Pick one of the questions, please.
Okay, so yes, here's one. So this person says, I'm a mixed race. I grew up with both understandings of the swastika. When I see the symbol in Eastern context, I see it as the symbol of fullness. But when I see it in European context, I see the symbol of hate. But I'm living evidence that cultural lines are blurring and that spaces may no longer belong to only one culture or another. How shall we handle a symbol that is so dependent on context in its interpretation when context itself becomes so increasingly blurred?
Yeah. Can do I start normally? I don't know.
Please go ahead, TK.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, I mean, one of the reasons that I just, one thing about the hate crime and everything is that violence, and then bringing the violence to the people, and then the hurting other people, taking all those lives and so forth. That is a question for me, is a big part of it. But and then the symbol itself is helped during the World War II, so which is no good for me. And then if you keep doing this, and then even like a hate group is still using that symbol for bringing the peace. I mean, instead of bringing peace, bringing hates and all those things. So it has to be changed, in my opinion. That's why for me it's the value of that thing is how many people are hurting by using the symbols. And then now that's what is the questions. But sorry, I forgot the questions. But so the question itself is something that for me, we work. I mean, clearly differentiate between Hakenkreuz and then the swastika. So which means we also make a distinction between clearly one is good symbol and bad symbol, and then because two are different symbols. I mean, some people think it's the same symbol. That to be a little that's a very different things, because the meaning of the symbol is very important. Actually, one of the reasons I have this one here in the back is because when I create the symbol of my own organization, what do I want it to represent by this symbol? So that from that aspect of the mind, then the symbol is actually reflecting the people's who make the symbol of. So Hitler's case, who call it a cross. He doesn't want it to, he create a cross, different cross, new cross, right? Like a crusade cross for Hitler's. That's the swastika symbol, not the swastika symbol, I mean Hakenkreuz symbol. Okay, so that's why Hakenkreuz has to be Hakenkreuz. But then the swastika is nothing to do with the anti-Semitism, because it's bringing the peace, all the legs connected each other, all the connection that we are trying to do. The swastika symbol itself intend to be like that from our point, not the cross. There's nothing cross for us. But then for you, probably you see the cross there too, right, Rabbi? So that's a cross symbol, the new cross that they created by the Hitler to do the anti-Semitism, right? I mean, or
I guess Rabbi Hirschfield, would you have something?
Sorry. So anyway,
yeah, and just very quickly, I think we're just kind of lost at 30,000 feet, and I want to do it from the ground up. Because if someone's being murdered under that symbol, they don't care what any of us are saying right now.
How do you know?
Right? Because because I know those people. If someone is being murdered, TK, under a symbol, whether the symbol is Jewish or Buddhist or Christian, all the lectures in history and taxonomy won't matter. So all I'm suggesting is not that anything you're saying is wrong, but I want to reverse the polarity and start with where people experience. So when the questioner asked, I think that's the real issue of context, which is why I would say that there are clearly contexts in which when you enter spaces that are saturated in Buddhist and Hindu tradition and ask them, well, you shouldn't use that symbol, that's insane. How can someone enter another community steeped in a rich and beautiful tradition and then say, no, you have no right to use it? the corollary to that is when someone is in agony about it being used, it seems to me it might be a good moment to back off, not because the other story is wrong or historically inaccurate, but simply because it causes pain. And one of the things I'm quite certain about all of our three traditions is we work really hard not to cause other people pain in the name of what we most believe.
If I can just answer it in a moment.
Sure, yes, please.
Okay. See, for everyone, when they talk about their faith, they seek their own way and fashion to understand their respective revelations, which every one of them considers it is final and irrevocable. There's no doubt about their individual understanding. So we need to understand how each one is perceiving it. Okay, so that is one of the reasons even TK was saying, even I was saying, application of the name, when the person who used for a hate purpose, he has never used it in the name of swastika, then why should we call it a swastika first? So that has to be clarified. Is, for example, I'll tell openly, did Hitler use this as a swastika? I don't think so. I could not. I will be happy if I could see some record that yes, Hitler used this symbol. I'm not talking about the symbol. I'm talking about the word used for the symbol. Okay, as swastika, I don't think so, because swastika can never make any wrong meaning. But this has been used. We don't know in the history. That's why I said history has to be rewritten. In the history, when beginning, I think that in the Hitler has never called it as swastika. As per so far, the archaeological department, any department has not found the word swastika is given as a name to this symbol, whereas it has been applied. So why should we call it as, that's what I'm saying, or call it as Hawking cross or whatever it is, as TK said, that's all. But because a name, or for example, God cannot do good for one person and bad for other person. That it cannot. See, God is, maybe I can call God in a different name, you call God in different name, that's all. Like that, I call this symbol as swastika for me. You call your symbol as something else. Why you have a hate symbol and you give the name of this side, which has no relevance to the other side. So that is what I would like to say.
Thank you, Ravi. I would like to go to one more question from our audience. And I'd like to start with Rabbi Hirschfield. I know we've had sort of a heated argument here, and I know we all just don't see eye to eye, but this person asks, do you think genuine shared understanding across cultures and religion is ever truly attainable, or is it just an aspiration?
Well, for me to be a religious person is to believe that the aspirational is attainable. And the day I give that up is the day I quit my job. But the path to the universal is deeply particular. I think it begins by appreciating that there are truths and insights and genius to be found in traditions that I will never inhabit. And I don't have to square that circle. That the way you get to some kind of universal appreciation is by appreciating deeply the tradition in which you are grounded and the possibility that the tradition of the other person is genius also in its own way, even if it's not genius for you. And in that sense, this is probably the last thing I'm going to get to say, what I've learned more deeply tonight from TK and from Ravi is that you and your traditions are victims of a massive cultural, historical mugging. That a rich and beautiful symbol was stolen. And that just as important as it is to be cognizant of the pain, because I don't believe people care about the history, is to be cognizant of the pain, to watch thousands of years of a beautiful symbol ripped out of context, abused, and imprinted as a symbol of hate for millions of other people. And so actually, it's okay, I don't think, and I hope it doesn't come across as so heated, I think it's about learning to experience the pain that exists when other people see a symbol used or abused. And ironically, that may be the thing we all share here.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi Hirschfield. That was wonderful. Unfortunately, I think we are about up with our time. I think we need to wrap things up. I just want to thank everyone for coming out today, for the audience. It was really definitely interesting to hear our thoughts and all these perspectives. We are recording this. This video link will be up, and we will send out a link for anyone that has missed it. Adam, if you had any other thoughts.
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Yosuke.
Right.
I'd like to thank our three panelists for coming out tonight and for helping us. I think the biggest takeaway for us is clearly this is such a complex, difficult, emotional issue that cannot be solved in an hour or an evening or a week. And that's precisely why we wanted to have this talk tonight. And it's precisely why we started working with TK 2 years ago to make this film. So on that note, what I would say is, if you are interested in this topic, please follow our film. Please feel free to reach out to us at manjidocumentary@gmail.com. That's MANJI documentary@gmail.com. And again, if you would like to support the film, if you would like to see more of this, if you would like to be involved in more of these conversations with TK, with Ravi, with Rabbi Hirschfield, with more people. And as you'll see when you go look at the film that we've put together so far, we have many more experts. We have many more people from many different backgrounds speaking their piece on this very complex issue. So with that being said, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. Cannot thank everyone enough for supporting our film so far, for getting us to 90%. You know, if you can check out our Seed and Spark campaign to help get us to 100, it would mean a lot. With that being said, have an excellent evening. Thanks again for attending, and we look forward to seeing all of you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you. I thought